Good morning and happy Friday. Today is Friday, the 17th of April, just to give context of how far in this injury timeline we are. But I thought I'd do a bit of a different vlog because I am getting so many questions, DMs, messages about my injury, what's happened, how far along I am, and a lot of girls asking like what was my recovery process like. I alluded to an update earlier this week that wasn't positive. I have a sports doctor appointment this afternoon, so I'm going to break this YouTube into two parts. Well, one video, but two parts. This morning, I'm going to speak to everything that's happened so far, why it happened, what I've learned from it, and this afternoon, I will, tell you where I'm heading as of now. So, for those who don't know, I have a femoral neck stress fracture. So, and people are like, well, what's that? Where's that? So, I would describe your femur like this. Like you've got, there is hair on my elastic band, sorry. You have like your ball, which sits in your like joint socket, and then you've got like your neck of femur, and then you've got your femur that comes down here. So, my fracture is, it's called the compression side. So, the inside and it like runs along here. So, unfortunately, we call this a high risk area. A lot of load goes through your hip and there is very limited blood supply. So it's a stress fracture that takes a long time to heal, which I knew in the first place when I did it. That being said, I knew nothing about stress fractures. I didn't know the signs, the symptoms, what to look out for, what not to look out for, why they happen. I mean, I guess like from my perspective, I'm like, oh, they happen from too much running, which is basically why I have a stress fracture. I know I have a stress fracture from running too much. I had a program, I had a coach, and I was running way too much. Anyway, I'm not going to speak about that because there is no reason to speak ill of anyone. But I ran way too much last year. Way too much for where my body had come from. Yes, I was a professional athlete, but I was a professional athlete in a non-weight bearing sport. I was a swimmer. Like I'm very upper body dominant. My legs don't have enough strength. I carry a lot of muscle in my upper body and not enough in my lower, and I was running way too much for what my body could handle. And they say that bones are the last thing to adapt. So your cardiovascular system, your muscles can keep up, but your bones are one of the last things that can actually, get strong. So I was running too much and I got a stress fracture. That being said, there are so many other things that I believe caused it. Probably a lack of fueling, overtraining, too much running, not enough recovery. For me, like sleep's always a priority. So like I'm a fairly good sleeper. And I guess like nutrition wise, it was more like in and around training that I don't think I was fueling enough, like pre-training, during training, and immediately post. Because I feel like my nutrition on the normally this week throughout a day is fairly good. But I wasn't having enough rest days. I was running like 6 days a week. I was hitting 50 to 70K on average for like a whole year. Way too much in your first year of running. Let me tell you that. I also thought that I was invincible. I know that sounds absolutely, utterly ridiculous, but I'd never ever been injured in my swimming career, and I just thought I was one of those people that had a body that never got injured. I was so wrong. so wrong. Anyway, let's take it back right to the start. So in January, I was in Perth. I was doing some running, and I knew I had a bit of a awareness in my hip before that run, but that run was like the straw that broke the camel's back. So after that, I was like, oh, like my hip feels a bit sore. Like maybe I've just been running a little bit too much lately. I was also starting to train for High Rocks because I got a ticket to Brisbane High Rocks, which was last weekend, in doubles, I think you call it, pro doubles actually. So I knew the weights would be heavy. So I was starting to add a little bit of High Rocks training in. I was running, and that was kind of the majority of my training, like gym, High Rocks, running. Went on this long run and I was like, oh man, like that doesn't feel good. Like it's now having to walk after. So I jumped on anti-inflammatories because that's kind of like, I thought when I'd done a little bit of research, I was like, oh, I think it might be like impingement related. Like, I'll just try to settle the area down. So jumped on some anti-inflammatories, and after a week, I knew I was still having pain in my hip. So I saw a physio in Perth, and I'm very like happy-go-lucky. Like, I assume nothing's going to be wrong. Like, she'll be right. I saw the physio in Perth, and she was great. She said to me, like, like, I think it might be an impingement as well, but should I write you an MRI just in case, if your pain still is lingering for the next few days? I was like, no, like, I'll be fine. Like, totally fine. Like, I'll, a few days and it'll be good to go. Oh my goodness, I was so wrong. Anyway, a few days later, I went back to Melbourne because I had spent that summer in Perth, and that was time to go back to work and things like that. Came back to Melbourne, and I just knew it still wasn't right. Like, the pain was still kind of lingering, and I mean, it wasn't bad pain. Like, that's the thing, I'd never describe it as, like, it was unbearable. It was just, like, there. I'd wake up in the morning, I was like, oh, like, it just feels a bit grumpy. Or sometimes I'd roll over at night and the pain would wake me up. Number one, biggest red flag. Night pain. Not good. Saw a physio in Melbourne, and the physio there was like, oh, yeah, like, I also think it might be impingement related. I reckon just give it 4 weeks of no running, and hopefully you're good to go. I was like, oh, look, like, I think I really want an MRI to rule out anything a little bit more sinister, because, like, this has been going on a while now. I'm not running. I'm not doing anything crazy on it. I'm following everything I've been told, and it's not really improving. She's like, no, let's just give it more time. Anyway, I really, really pushed for an MRI. They didn't want me to have one. Anyway, thank God I did, because I got a referral, had an MRI, and I have a 10.2 millimeter fracture in my femoral neck, which is like just over a centimeter. Yeah, not ideal. I remember I was at work and I got a call from that physio, and she was like, I need you to go to the chemist and get yourself a pair of crutches, and you're non-weight bearing for 6 weeks. I was like, my wedding's in 6 weeks. What are you talking about? She's like, yeah, you have a stress fracture. I went, look, that was a day and a half itself. So I got myself a set of crutches and immediately came off like non-weight bearing. That was a bad day. Actually, let's be honest, every day has been bad since 3 months. For me, the hardest part was like, my wedding was 6 weeks away. No girl wants to be told, you can't do anything. You're non-weight bearing, you can't exercise, you can't go outside, you can't, until your wedding. Like, soul destroying. Like, yeah. My hands was also in 5 weeks. Anyway, the physio also said, go see a sports doc. They know best. Like, this is just our protocol, what we suggest, but go see a sports doc. And I was like, okay, I will go do that. Bloods came back completely fine. Which I knew was like, I was kind of assuming they'd be okay, because I'm like, I am fairly regular with blood tests and things like that. But like, the sports doc said to me, he's like, oh, you in pain? I was like, well, no. And I'd probably been non-weight bearing for a while, a week and a half before I could get into the sports doc. He's like, well, stand up for me. And so I stood up, and he's like, are you in pain? I was like, well, no, I'm not in pain. He's like, can you take a few steps? I was like, oh, with the crutches. He's like, no, just without. I was like, okay. He's like, does it hurt? I'm like, no. He's like, well, you can come off them then. So it is so hard being told such contradicting opinions. A week and a half prior, my physio told me I was 6 weeks non-weight bearing. A week and a half later, the sports doctor said I could start walking immediately. Who's right? What do I do? So I went and got a third opinion from an osteo who was aligned with the sports doc. He also spoke to a second sports doc, which was aligned to the initial sports doc. So everyone agreed that I could come off crutches provided I was pain-free. As soon as I had pain, get back on crutches, and start non-weight bearing. And I mean, when I say get off crutches, it's like I was using crutches outside the house. It was only sort of walking from getting out of bed to the bathroom. I was walking around the house without crutches. So anything outside of the house, I was crutches, non-weight bearing. So that was the next like 3 to 4 weeks. I was doing like 500 steps a day inside the house. Everything else I was trying to get off the leg. So yeah, I followed protocol to a T. All I was doing was upper body swimming, and whenever I was pushing off a wall, I'd only do it on my like leg that wasn't injured. So I was like turning with one leg and only doing upper body swimming. Now, fast forward to the wedding and hens, I wasn't obviously not on crutches at all. I was still very, very mindful. I wasn't jumping around on my leg. I was very, very careful of everything that I did. But it seemed to pull up okay. And post wedding, I really like started introducing a little bit more. Like I the sports doc at 2 weeks cleared me to add bike in. So also this is going on a very long time. So I'm just trying to give you like full context of the injury just to explain like, yeah, I guess like everything that I've been told, and hopefully this, is able to help someone or for someone to understand like my journey that little bit more. And if it encourages them to, to stay a bit more positive, whatever it may be, that is the aim. Anyway, so I post wedding, I was like, you know what, I didn't add in bike before the wedding because I was like, I just don't feel like I need to or want to. It's a bit risky. After the wedding, wedding was at like 6 week mark on the dot. So that on the 7th week, I started introducing a little bit of bike. So, and it seemed to be totally fine. And then I saw the osteo again, and I added in like a little bit of elliptical. Like I'm talking like 2 times 20 minutes. And then like I just really slowly introduced more and more things. Provided everything was pain-free. So my steps started to increase. I added a little bit more bike. I then added a little more elliptical, and then added Pilates, all of which I've been told I can do. So I'm now 12 weeks. Sunday just gone, I had my 12-week scan. So 3 months. And I saw my results on Monday. And stupidly, I obviously looked at the scan, and I understand what I'm looking for because the fracture is visible. And there was still a fracture visible on Monday. And I've heard from my osteo who's seen the report that it has gone from 10.2 millimeters to 7.5 millimeters. So it's like not even a third cleared or healed. That broke me. Like genuinely broke me on Monday. I did everything I was told. I never once said to myself, oh, you know what, I'm just going to test it and do some single leg hops. I never ever did anything that I was told I couldn't do by medical professionals. So that's where I am now. The osteo said, look, just keep doing what you're doing this week and see the sports doc on Friday. In the meantime, I've also had a bone density scan, it's called a DEXA, to measure my bone density, just check, to make sure there's no underlying issues such as osteoporosis. And it will also rank my bone density. I'm not going to assume, but I don't think I would have osteoporosis, but I still might have very low bone density, which is so highly possible given my background in swimming. So I had that, and I get the results this afternoon at the sports doc appointment. But that is what's happened so far. That I'm literally pain-free in everything I do. Yes, I can replicate pain in a butterfly stretch. I would stretch, that's groin stretch. But walking, biking, elliptical, I have no pain doing anything. So I just am so confused by it. And then it just makes you second guess, well, should I have been completely non-weight bearing for 6 weeks? And should I have not introduced bike at 7 weeks? And it just makes you second guess everything. So hopefully I get some answers this afternoon. The hardest part in all of this has been the unknown. Me just sitting here hoping it's healing, hoping it's getting better, the anxious wait for the scan, the anxious wait to see the results, the anxious wait to speak to the sports doctor. Like, I don't want to feel this anymore. I now know that there's still a fracture there, so my brain is searching, like, is there pain? Is there danger? Are you feeling pain doing this? Are you feeling pain doing that? And I just thought this scan was, yeah, I know that I didn't assume that, yeah, that everything's fine, you can return to run right away. Like, I didn't think that that would be the case, but I also didn't think that I'd still have a 7.5 millimeter fracture in my femoral neck. So, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing, where I'm heading. I'm not in pain, which is fantastic, but I also still have a stress fracture in my femoral neck. So I'm going to go and see the sports doctor again and see what they suggest, and we'll take it from there. I am back with part 2, post seeing the sports doctor. Excuse the appearance, but since the sports doctor's appointment, I have spent a long time crying, and I'm trying to use these to get rid of the puffiness and the bags under my eyes. Basically, the sports doctor said to me, yeah, it's healing slowly, probably just not as fast as we expected. You still have the fracture there. I was like, yeah. I was like, oh, like I also had a DEXA bone density scan done. Do you have the results for them? He's like, oh, yep, let me have a look. And he goes, oh, you have osteopenia throughout your whole skeleton. As a just turned 30-year-old, that's not the diagnosis that I was expecting. So I guess I'll explain what osteopenia is, which obviously I really had no idea what it was at the time. Osteopenia is basically you have less than ideal bone density. So my bones are weak, they fracture easily, they don't really repair quickly. I guess there are multiple, and my husband came with me, and he sort of said, is this reversible? And the doctor said, yep, absolutely, which is a really good thing, because typically people or women will get osteopenia when they go through menopause, as your bone density really declines during that period and for the rest of your life, sort of thing. So osteopenia is typically something that you get when you're 50, 60 years old. I'm 30, just turned 30. So this came as a really big shock. A really, really big shock. And I guess I'm glad it is completely reversible. I don't know how long I've had this. And I guess given my history, I have been a competitive swimmer my whole life. I didn't grow up playing, running, jumping. I didn't play high contact sport. I didn't run. I didn't jump. Yes, we absolutely did gym for strength, for swimming, but they were so swimming specific gym programs. Like, a lot of it was upper body. Like weighted chins were like our number one exercise. So I would probably assume that my osteopenia comes down a little bit to having gone my whole life not really in a weight-bearing sport. And I mean, if I look at swimming, like when we are not training, we are trying to rest. We are staying off our legs. We want to be as fresh as we can for the next session or the next day. So it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, at lunchtime I'm going to go for a walk. Like, no, we want to get off our legs. We want to rest. We want to recover for the next session. So when I was at such a high level competing, I really tried to just minimize my steps outside of my training, because I wanted to freshen my legs up. We all did. So yeah, I also think underfueling has a possibly something to do with it. Probably not underfueling as much in swimming, but very much so when I was running. I think that not so much in my marathon training, because I knew I was training for a marathon, I needed to fuel. It was post-marathon training where I was just running the most ridiculous amount of kilometers and intensity for a half marathon, or just to keep fitness up. And because my mindset was that I wasn't really training for a full marathon, I didn't need to feel like I was. But I was still running 60 to 70K a week, which is just like madness, absolute madness for my first ever year of running. And I also am checking my hormone health. So I think it's really important to speak about this. Again, it's not like a taboo kind of subject anymore. I think this needs to be spoken about a lot more openly. I have been on contraception for, the majority of my adulthood. So I don't actually know if I ever lost my regular cycle. And obviously, your cycle comes a lot. Your cycle says a lot about your hormone health. So, oh my God, I actually just can't take myself seriously with these things on. But your cycle says a lot about your hormone health and how your levels are. So I don't exactly know if hormones have anything to do with it. But I am having some further testing done to rule that out. And I think the hardest thing for me was that he's like, yep, another MRI in 6 weeks and come back and see me. For me, an MRI is so triggering. I'm not an anxious person. I don't really get anxious about things. But an MRI to me is one of the most nerve-wracking things. An MRI on my hip for this injury, because every single time, well, the 2 times I had it, one, absolutely blindsided me that I had a 10 millimeter stress fracture. And 2, when I really thought it would be healed, it had healed a third. And I've just been each time so taken back by the result. And it's like, I don't mind sitting in an MRI machine. It's not about like the actual, and I know some people are claustrophobic and don't particularly like being in like the little bundle thing, but that doesn't bother me. It's the waiting for the results. It's the hoping. It's the when you get your results and you like look at the scan and you try and read it without the report or before what the doctor says. It's like that for me is just so, I hate it. And I've really thought that I was done with MRIs, but he wants me to have another one in 6 weeks. And that for me wasn't really the news I wanted to hear. In all honesty, the whole appointment wasn't really what I wanted to hear. But that being said, he has cleared me to exercise still. He says, like, obviously no jumping, no plyometrics, no jogging, no running, no like burpees or box jumps, which obviously I would not do. But he said, look, everything that you're doing now, you can continue doing. Because I'm like, the one thing I am so nervous about and cautious of is what I'm doing, like swim, bike, elliptical, lower body gym, still like very light. Is that hindering the healing? Because it is, I will not do it because I want to heal this thing as quickly as possible. And he's like, no, you're fine. I'm like, okay, if you say so. Because everything I do is pain-free. But yeah, I also want to get this healed as quickly as I can and move on with my life. I've actually never had this many appointments in my life before. And it is very expensive. So I'm also now working with a sports dietitian to look at nutrition and fueling and making sure that I'm getting enough of the good things to help my bone health. I love milk, but calcium wasn't actually tested on my first blood test. So we're retesting. Well, I did another blood test right after the sports doc appointment to do all hormone health and calcium too. So waiting on those results. But I know my vitamin D levels are fine and most other things that they checked for were completely fine. So my bloods were fine. But yeah, so the saga continues. I have taken, a few days just to recoup, reset, understand really what osteopenia is, what causes it, how it can be fixed. And, I read things like lack of sleep, lots of alcohol, drugs, smoking. I'm like, I don't do any of that. Like, I'm literally like so not anti it. I'm just like, I don't do any of that. I make sure that I try and sleep as much as I can. I fuel my body, potentially not enough, but fairly well. I don't really ever eat fast food. I have a sweet tooth, don't get me wrong, but like, I don't drink ever. The last time I drank was at my wedding. I do not smoke. I do not do drugs. So yeah, for someone who lives such a, I would say, a healthy lifestyle, like it was quite disheartening because I feel like I tried and I do everything right, but some things are just that they just happen. So I feel like I'm in the acceptance phase now, and it's like, okay, well, how can I? Well, people are just running past my window. I wish I could run. I'm in that stage now where I'm just, you know what, I just need to do everything I can. I need to just trust the advice of the medical professionals. I have a little bit more in terms of answers now as to why it's healing slower. I can still exercise. I can still do the things that I want to do. Yeah, so that is the update. Oh goodness gracious, it's not ideal, but I mean, it could be worse, I guess. Um, but I hope that answers any sort of questions. I felt like it was probably like an in-depth video was due because I'd answered a few questions on social media, but there were so many more, in particular, like how did this happen in the first place? So yeah, that's everything from me, and thank you for tuning in for this YouTube. It's probably not a typical YouTube where I've ever just sat and spoken to camera, and it's probably very, very boring. So, kudos to anyone who has stayed till the end to watch. But sending lots of love, and my heart goes out to anyone else going through similar things, or not being able to do the things that they love, because it's hard. It's really hard. So stay in there, and I hope you guys all have a beautiful week.